Alright, I'm back talking about more Battlefield 2042. Before I get into more of the details that are on their site and things that DICE have said, I want to give more of my thoughts on the game. So first of all, I really like the setting. I was kind of afraid that they would go too far, like Call of Duty Advanced Warfare or Infinite Warfare. I didn't want them to go like the route of jetpacks and everyone has laser guns. And I also didn't want them to go to like Battlefield 2142 either, or the Battlefield 4 expansion. What was that one called? Like Endgame or something, where they had railguns and hover tanks. I think this is just far enough in the future, but not too far. You still got modern weaponry. You got realistic gadgets that exist today. Like basically everything in this trailer exists now and will exist obviously in 20 years from now, which that is weird to think about that this game takes place in 21 years from now. It's like a little bit less futuristic than Black Ops 2, which I think that's just far enough. Some of this looks pulled straight from Black Ops 2, like the wingsuit guy, even his helmet looks kind of like the guy from Black Ops 2, the Ospreys. But yeah, everything in that trailer exists now. The Boston Dynamics robot dog, that looks like a natural progression, just throwing a gun on it. So thankfully, it's not too out there. One thing I'm not sure about is I'm getting ahead of myself about this. I'll get to the specialists, but I'm not sure about those. Like, I kind of want to still be able to just customize a standard-looking soldier. I don't like it that we might be forced to choose, like, between 10 different actual people and characters with backgrounds. I kind of like just playing as a no-faced soldier, but maybe that's just me. Yeah, and I've heard comparisons of the premise to the game Tom Clancy's End War, which I know nothing about, but apparently it seems a lot like that. So, digging into more of the details, apparently there's no campaign, which for me is actually a good thing. Battlefield campaigns have never been all that compelling, to be honest, except for maybe Bad Company 2. They've been fun to play through once, I guess, but that's never been their bread and butter. Like, obviously Battlefield's big draw has always been multiplayer. That's what they're best at. But you can see that their efforts have kind of dwindled over the past couple entries. I liked Battlefield 1's campaign, but it was very short. It was an episodic thing with like 5 or 6 missions following different characters. I liked it, but I don't think it'll work in this setting. The whole War Stories thing worked for World War I. And then with Battlefield 5, their campaign was even shorter. It was only like 4 missions, I think, and then the 5th one came later in the first season of DLC updates, which was absurd. And yeah, I've said for years that they should just finally ditch the campaign. Just pull the plug, because you guys, I think Call of Duty does way better campaigns than them, because it's not their strong suit. Because their multiplayer has always been the thing. It's their specialty. I think them making campaign or even the co-op mode from Battlefield 3 and 5, but let's not talk about that disaster, would draw too many resources away from the core of Battlefield that us fans love. I think all that manpower is best suited working, like focusing 100% on their core modes like Conquest, Rush, Breakthrough. And it sounds like they're doing that because the scale of this game is absolutely massive this time. So as long as there's a ton of maps and years of proper support and not the disaster that Battlefield 5 was, I'm okay with it. And yeah, it's apparently more than just DICE working on this. It's several other EA studios. I remember the rumors that DICE LA was supposedly making Bad Company 3. There was rumors that there was like several Battlefield games in development at once, but no, it seems to be all hands on deck for this, which is good. I love how they're clearly paying homage to fans. Like they said, this game is a love letter to fans, and they aren't really taking themselves too seriously. That trailer had some clear, like, only in Battlefield moments that you see in montages, like the ATV hitting the helicopter, and of course the jumping out of the plane and hitting one with a rocket. In the past, they've never really showed that stuff in their trailers. They've always been kind of dark and serious because they had to sell the campaign to you. But with no campaign this time, it's just like, hey, look at how crazy our sandbox can be. It was a clear example of, this time, DICE being inspired by the community with the guy jumping out and shooting the thing with the RPG. So it was fun to see that recreated in like a CG cutscene. So the near future setting, I think, gives them way more freedom now, especially with cosmetics and the battle pass. When you're in World War I or II, there's only so much you can do before it starts to take away from the authenticity. That being said, I don't want to see a bunch of people running around in like stupid like weed camos like in Call of Duty. Like, I want it to still maintain a sense of realism. I don't want them to go over the top with the cosmetics. That's something that I'm concerned with Halo Infinite as well. I don't want them to go crazy with that. I want them to look like Spartans still. But Be getting to that soon with the Halo Infinite reveal. But with this game, it looks like Battlefield kind of sat back the past few years and watched all these other games and trends and took notes, and now they are coming in to do it better than everyone else. They clearly took inspiration from Rainbow Six Siege with the specialists, because back when Battlefield 4 came out, that wasn't really a thing. I mean, some of them are straight rip-offs if you think about it. One of them's basically Doc. It's got like a little gun that shoots a little syringe to heal somebody. And they are actually jumping into a real Battle Pass system this time, and not the sort of halfway Battle Pass that they had in Battlefield 5, the old Tides of War thing. And apparently only cosmetics will cost money, and any gameplay-related things like guns, vehicles, and maps will be free updates, which is good. They're not splitting the player base anymore. It is interesting to see that Battlefield actually beat Call of Duty to the punch this year. They revealed first. They must be very confident in what they have if they're firing the first shot. It'll be interesting to watch if Call of Duty goes back to World War II this year, like the rumors say. I think if that happens, then Battlefield might be back on top this time. I think they'll grind them into the dirt. It's been almost 9 years since Battlefield has done a modern setting, not counting Hardline. So I think it was the right time. They must have kept the title Battlefield 2042 under wraps, because there was tons of rumors that the game was just simply called Battlefield, like it was a reboot. I'm glad that's not the case, because think about how confusing that is for like the layman to figure out the order in which they came out. It'll be like, okay, so it goes Battlefield 2, 3, 4, 1, 5, and then just Battlefield with no subtitle. Yeah, that would have been weird, so I'm glad they have a subtitle. And it's kind of sort of a prequel to 2142 if you think about it, since it's 2042. I remember speculating that we'd get a sequel to that, but I'm glad they didn't go that far. So if you have seen, I recommend actually watching Jack Fraggs' video on this. He does a much better job than I do. But some things that he mentioned in his video because he's seen the game more behind the scenes at an EA event. Some of the quotes from him in his video, he said that they're saying it's the biggest Battlefield game ever, which I think that's obvious. But they kind of say that every time, but I think it's pretty true this time. They're using the latest Frostbite technology and a new physics system. And here's the big one. It's multiplayer only, no single player, but there's going to be story elements woven into multiplayer. And I've already said in the last video why I'm actually perfectly fine with there being no campaign. And I think he is too. A lot of the big-time Battlefield YouTubers actually have been clamoring for that for a long time. And since there's no proper single player, I think, given that there's no campaign or proper single player, I think there will probably be mini specialist training missions, kind of like in Rainbow Six or Black Ops 4, that introduce the mechanics for each specialist. He said that the game is emphasizing all-out warfare, and it's emphasizing the sandbox elements that are classic to Battlefield, which I think has been something sorely missing in the last couple of games. But you were kind of limited by the era of World War I and II. You can't do crazy stuff like putting C4 on an ATV and throwing it at a helicopter. Just having helicopters back is so great. There's a new system. We're going to find out more on Sunday, but there's a system called the Plus system for guns, which I think is taking a page out of Modern Warfare 2019. With on-the-fly gun configuration, you can change the scope, the barrel, the ammo type, and the underbarrel attachments. Also, this feature's kind of crazy. You can play with or against AI players. Sounds kind of like Titanfall 2 or Star Wars Squadrons. That does that too. But what's crazy is you can play by yourself against a whole server of AI players. I've never heard of that before. So you can have just you versus 127 other people. Well, if it's a team, then it's you and 31 teammates 63 teammates versus 64 teammates that are 64 enemies that are AI controlled. I guess that's good for people that have poor or no internet access to still be able to play. But I hope the AI is good and not completely stupid. So the AI will fill up the server and then they're replaced by real players. And it's intended to be kind of a training ground or a testing ground for new players to the franchise. And apparently a progression is enabled in the AI mode, which seems ripe for boosting unlocks. I wonder how that's going to work. People can go in there and just mow AI down easily to get all their unlocks quick. There's a big emphasis on vehicle combat, which is good to hear. And this is kind of nuts. You can request a land vehicle at any time with a tablet. You could be anywhere on the map and just be like, boop, I want a Humvee right here. I hope that's not for tanks, because like that seems like a nightmare to balance. Like, can you just call a main battle tank wherever, whenever? Between that and the tornadoes, it really does feel like Just Cause 4, because in that game you can call vehicles to you as well. But it's probably going to use a Battlefront 2 style point system that lets you call in vehicles. Seems like it'd be hard to balance. There's multiple seats in all the vehicles with specific roles like miniguns, grenade launchers, laying mines behind you, AA guns. Some of the vehicles listed that are going to be in it are the Su-57 jet, the Apache helicopter, the E-6 Jaeger Recon. It looks kind of like a Recon Humvee. The Little Bird, of course. Ospreys, main battle tanks. And the Ka-52 Alligator, which is a Russian helicopter. The maps are absolutely massive this time, with capture points that have multiple sectors now. They're a huge territory. It's almost like a massive Battlefield map made up of smaller Battlefield maps that are territories. The maps are going to be smaller on last gen, and last gen is only going to be 64 players and not 128. And the maps are going to be shrunk down and tailored for that experience. There's inclement weather, so tornadoes and sandstorms that can launch debris that can kill you. I guess apparently there was Dan Berlin, who's a director on the game, told them a story when they were there about a tornado coming through and flinging a crate and killing a sniper in the distance, which is hilarious. Like, that's going to be nuts. Like, you're just in the game minding your own business and suddenly, like, a piece of debris hits you from a tornado and kills you. That might be irritating, to be honest. That's the next step in Levolution, is with these weather events. Apparently that map with the rocket has the ability to screw up the rocket launch, and I think it just explode. There's interactable things like raising and lowering bridges. You can move certain shipping containers with cranes in real time. The map Breakaway is their biggest map in the game. It's set in Antarctica, and it's 5.9 square kilometers. That's insane. Apparently that's the size of the Vikendi map from PUBG. That's one map. Nuts. And the gadgets are locked to each specialist, but this is a pretty cool change. You can pick any primary, secondary, and grenade for any class. So no more sniper locked to recon, LMGs locked to like support or whatever. So they're giving you a lot more freedom now. Basically, all class weapons from the past are going to be on everything. There's apparently no battle royale, which, to be honest, I don't mind. I think Battlefield should just be Battlefield. It can stand on its own. There will be an open beta. The airspace is apparently massive now, so you aren't gonna keep running out of bounds like you did before. Dedicated servers, I think that's a given now. Let's take a look at some of the information on the website. So here's the main website. It says Battlefield 2042, adapt and overcome in a near future world transformed by disorder. Battlefield returns on October 22nd, 2021. Yet another October game. I'm going to have so many games at the end of this year competing for my attention and for ones I want to cover on here. Like, somehow I'm, like, within a few weeks of each other. This is strange if you really think about it. If Halo is indeed coming out on the anniversary on November 15th, that means within a month of each other, weirdly, we are getting, I mean, if you just call this Battlefield 6, we're getting Battlefield 6, Far Cry 6, and Halo 6, all within a month of each other, which is very strange. Imagine if it was also Grand Theft Auto 6. So there's going to be a lot competing for our time and money this holiday season, which is good to see. I was afraid this year might be light because of game delays due to COVID, but it looks like we're still going to have a pretty packed fall. Here's another part of the page. It says the next generation of all-out warfare is I already saw that. It's the same thing. It says, welcome to 2042. Battlefield's changing before your eyes, a cutting-edge arsenal at your disposal. The grand return of all-out warfare. Adapt and overcome in massive scale 128 battles, asterisk, where dynamic storms, environmental hazards, total combat freedom, and Battlefield's signature destruction spark a new breed of only in Battlefield moments. The game modes, this seems to be the main game mode is just called All-Out Warfare, which consists of like the two biggies, which is Conquest and Breakthrough. Then there's a new thing called Hazard Zone. It says squad up and drop into the Hazard Zone, an all-new high-stakes multiplayer experience. Stay tuned for more information coming later in the year. To me, if I didn't know any better, that sounds like BR, but I don't think they said they're not going to have BR, or they're just calling it something else, but I don't know. And then Redacted, there's another mode. Oh, I hope that's Rush. I don't want to have another Battlefield with no Rush. Well, Rush has not been the same since 3. I think 3 was when it was the best. It was at its peak. Bad Company 2 and 3. But I don't know, the maps might be too big for that. Rush works better on slightly smaller maps, which is why it worked so well on Bad Company 2 since it was a console only game. That is a concern that the maps are so gigantic that it might slow the gameplay down too much, but we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, here's the asterisk that they had. Xbox One and PlayStation 4 support 64 players. 128 players and massive scale maps are available on Series X and S, PC, and PS5. Looks like I'm going to have to upgrade before the end of the year. I wanted to anyway before Halo. It says another detail. It says, as the world stands on the brink of war, a new kind of stateless soldier emerges from the greatest crisis in human history. How did we get here? So here's the timeline it shows for the loose story framework that they have since there's no campaign. It says 2031, so 10 years from now. 10 years is all it took to bring the world to the brink. Rising sea levels, collapsing economies, broken alliances, and the headlines keep rolling in. This is getting a little too close to home. October 9th, 2033, Hurricane Zeta, the world's first Category 6 storm. Is that even a thing, or would that have to be made up? January 11th, 2034, global food. Imagine if all this comes true. It is weird because I think back when Battlefield 3 came out, it was set. Wasn't it set in 2020 or something? Because it came out in 2013. It was set almost a decade later. So we're kind of living Battlefield 3's timeline right now. So it's kind of strange to think about. January 11th, 2034, global fuel shortages spark second Great Depression. August 8th, 2035, European Union officially disbands following Germany's collapse. I don't see anything negative about that. The EU can go away, I think. Be a better thing, I think, if every country can govern themselves, not have to be controlled by one overarching body like the EU. So that is not a problem if that happens in my book. But moving on. The rise of the No-Pats. Left behind, the displaced band together in ragtag fleets in search of safe harbor. They are families, farmers, doctors, engineers, and soldiers, the once privileged and the impoverished with backgrounds that are worlds apart, forced together, determined to survive. The media calls them non-patrioted. They call themselves No-Pats. The new normal, 2037. Humanity adapts to the new normal. That's another phrase we keep hearing all too much these days. Revolutions in energy, desert irrigation, hydraulic levees, and the seawalls save coastal cities, reclaim farmland, and rebuild supply chains. Hope of finding stability leads to some nations reopening their borders. However, with no way to repatriate 1.2 billion people, No-Pats become a permanent fixture in an economic, military, and social policy making. Many No-Pats are still distrustful of the governments that exiled them and refuse calls to reassimilate. No-Pat leaders emerge, inspiring a new identity unbound to former nationality, drawing a line in the sand between the old world and the new normal. Hashtag We Are No-Pats becomes a rallying cry. So they say all this, but I've heard that it is still technically kind of sort of U.S. versus Russia. Of course, again, for decades now, it's all in games. It's always U.S. versus Russia because they say they're the global superpower, the second one. But let's be honest with ourselves. It's 2021, and China is the other superpower. If they had the balls, they would make China the aggressor in this game, but they don't have balls. And you know how I know that? Because they did that for Battlefield 4. It was U.S. versus China, but wasn't it banned there? I think if I remember correctly, that game was banned in China, and they'll never do that again because you know how many millions of sales they lose. So again, Russia is the whipping boy even in 2021. They have to have someone to scapegoat, so they have to keep using Russia as the villains instead of the real villains, which is not even disputed at this point, which is China. I don't care. Ban this video in China. Well, it's going to happen anyway. They have an intranet there, so that's just the reality. The blackout of 2040. A sudden space debris storm creates a Kessler effect, causing 70% plus of all orbiting satellites to malfunction and crash to Earth. The cause is unknown. The subsequent blackout causes mass devastation. Planes crash, communication grids collapse. Already jammed global supply chains come to a standstill. Prices of oil, grain, coal skyrocket exponentially. Well, one of those things has already happened. Unsubstantiated claims report over 100,000 lives are lost. Why are they unsubstantiated? A world on the brink goes over the edge. No internet, no navigation, no surveillance, no storm forecasts. Geopolitical distrust surges overnight. No one can spy on each other, so no one can trust each other. Both Russia and the U.S. claim the other is responsible for the blackout, while some suspect NOPATs were behind it and accuse them of trying to sow anarchy. Why would rando soldiers do that? That's stupid. Former military and combat trained specialists among the NOPATs rise up into armed task forces to defend themselves as tensions rise. The brink of war. A food and fuel shortage ignites a shadow war between the U.S. and Russia. To maintain plausible deniability, both sides field NOPAT task forces as proxies in escalated conflicts over resources, promising the refugees a piece of what's left. 2042. Open war is imminent. NOPATs have no choice but to choose sides, fighting not for a flag but for their future. Their war is your story. Huh. I don't know how they would have made this like a campaign for this. It would have been weird. It seems kind of wishy-washy and vague. Like they just had a lore writer spend it like a few weeks writing just stuff to give context to the like the crazy stuff like tornadoes in the multiplayer. But like I said, I don't care about that. There's no campaign. Here's some more information. Live service. We're taking a new approach to live service for a Battlefield game where players will be given the services and evolution they have come to expect from modern multiplayer games, all aimed at keeping the community playing together for years to come. Let's hope. And let's hope they don't pull the plug early like on Battlefield 5 because they ran out of time and people to work on it, because that live service model was a unmitigated disaster for BF5. We'll be evolving our world and expanding on the fiction through seasons, each one lasting for about 3 months. That's about what Call of Duty does. Every season will come with a new free and paid-for battle pass, delivering new content to chase after. In our first year of live service, we will deliver 4 seasons with 4 battle passes, 4 new specialists, along with more fresh content. We'll have more to share on the first season before launch. A cutting-edge arsenal. That's amazing that they got hovercrafts. Unleash your combat creativity through a full roster of cutting-edge weapons, vehicles, jets, helis, and all new equipment inspired by near future of 2042. Maps. The maps in Battlefield 2042 allow for all new gameplay experiences with unprecedented scale and choices in gameplay. With the introduction of 128 players, each map is specifically designed to provide a unique experience that directly impacts strategy for you and your squad. Battlefields have multiple distinct combat areas housed in a single player space, and this extra space means more variety and more meaningful vehicle gameplay. So here's a look at, I think there's 7 maps, which if there's only 7 maps at launch and there's no campaign, that's a little light on maps. Like even Battlefield 5 had, 9? And then a 10th came later. That's pretty standard for Battlefield's 9, but 7, I guess, since the maps are huge this time, it makes sense. But they better really be impressive and bug-free if there's only 7. Like, we should at least expect that. That's one concern I have is, with Battlefield 5, DICE was spread way too thin. They were still working on Battlefront 2 updates. So they had to keep supporting a couple of games, and they don't have time to bug test, I think, the whole... Like, think about how big these maps are and how much bug testing has to be done. So, I don't know realistically how often we'll get new maps. And it might be just one at a time. Like, here's one new map, because it's the size of a small town. Or, no, it's the size of a city. So, we might only get one new map every month. Or, it'd be nice if it was one a month, but that might be too optimistic. I hope we get tons of new weapons, too, and new vehicles. There's going to be no excuse this time with this many studios working on the game and no campaign. So here's the first map they showed off. Orbital. Looks kind of like Launch from Call of Duty. Crow French Guiana? Is that how you spell that? I didn't think that's how you spell it, unless this is a fictional place. The future setting is good because you can kind of have a huge array of different locations for maps, because World War II, you're limited, obviously, by the different fronts of the war. Same thing with World War I. But with this fictional future, almost like post-World War III, almost apocalyptic setting, kind of like Call of Duty Ghosts, you can just kind of just throw a dart at the map and be like, hey, let's make a map there. So it gives them a lot of creative freedom. It says, it's a race against time and hostile conditions as you fight around the site of an imminent rocket launch. Watch out for both enemy fire and upcoming storms on this dynamic map. Apparently, there's certain maps that like apparently this rocket can blow up, but I bet the fire will remain. Like I've heard that in certain maps there will be fire that just sits there and stays there like the whole match. There'll probably be some crazy evolution that like the maps are going to change quite significantly over the course of a game. Hourglass, Doha, Qatar. That looks gorgeous. Fight in a city lost to the desertification around it. Massive dust and sandstorms are constantly rolling in, blotting out the natural light, as you battle for control of a convoy trapped in the shifting sands. Kaleidoscope. This is the one that looks like Siege of Shanghai. Songdo, South Korea. In a state-of-the-art metropolis in South Korea, zipline between skyscrapers and fight among the plazas surrounding the city's iconic data center. I do like ziplines. That was one of the best features of Battlefield Hardline. One of the only good features of that game. Manifest, Branny Island, Singapore. Watch out for tropical tornadoes and navigate through maze-like cargo containers in the key trade location vital to American supply lines. Yeah, that just looks basically like a modern-day No Shark Canals, which is cool. That's always a fun type of map. I remember camping up on the cranes on that map with a sniper. Good times. Discarded Alang, India. Along a strategic section of India's west coast, colossal ships stranded on the beach are being stripped for parts. Fight among the hulls of these behemoths while adapting to deadly storms. This is the most compelling map, I think. Breakaway, and it's in Queen Maud Land, Antarctica, which is a cool setting, I think. And there's penguins, which we saw in the trailer too, which is pretty neat. Tread carefully on this dynamic map where oil extraction has turned the freezing area to a strategic hotspot. Take advantage of destructible fuel tanks and silos that create debris fields and permanent fires when destroyed. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. And this is the map that's apparently 5.9 kilometers, the biggest map in the game, which is the size of a PUBG map, which is nuts. Renewal. Eastern Desert, Egypt. A giant wall built to secure rich man-made agricultural areas takes center stage on this intense map. Prepare for the extreme conditions, deploy and secure the access points and massive gates in the wall. That looks cool. It's like a split half and half of where you can see the desertification stops and where it looks really nice. So moving on from the maps, here's the stuff on here about specialists. Choose your role on the battlefield and form custom-made squads through the new specialist system. Based on Battlefield's 4 classes, specialists have one unique specialty and trait, but the rest of the loadout is fully customizable. Choosing and equipping your specialist allows you to build synergies within your squad and empower yourself to take on any battle situation. And they showed off 4 specialists, and there's going to be 10 in total at launch. This guy's name's Webster McKay, an ex-military lone wolf survivalist. McKay is an arse kicker. YouTube, remember? I don't want to get persecuted by YouTube for saying pretty terrible swear words like that. With a conscience, this Canadian-born assault soldier fights for the non-patrioted to make right a regret from his military days. He has a grappling hook, fires a rope that attaches to surfaces. When attached, the rope is retracted, yada yada. Nimble, allows the player to move more quickly when aiming down the sights. And then there's Maria Falk. A veteran support, Maria Falk has a strong will that cannot be shaken by danger, fear, or rank. The medic's primary motivation is to find her son, David. It's so weird how these people that you play as have like their own stories. I am going to miss just the playing as the average Joe soldier that you can customize. We'll see if they still somehow include that. Or if these specialists are like super customizable, then I don't think it'll be a problem. Because when you're playing Modern Warfare, you don't really care or think about that they're just specialists. She has a Surette pistol, fires a syringe at friendlies to heal, which is just like Rainbow Six, and a combat surgeon allows player to return downed allies to combat with full health when reviving. Piotr Boris Guskovsky. Looks kind of like Dave Bautista, just a tiny bit. Self-motivated and self-fulfilling, Boris seeks to acquire power and control in a chaotic world. This Russian-born engineer is a very experienced weapons expert on the task force, although his true attachment to the team is suspect. Look at that. Is that a 50 cal turret? That sure looks like it. He has SG-36 sentry system. Automatically spots and engages enemy targets detected within a certain area. Sentry operator spots the enemy target when the sentry gun locks onto the enemy in question. Okay, this guy's name. What a name. Wickus, or base like Vicus Casper Van Dale. All that I can think of, I'm going to either call him the Fook and Prawn guy, like Vicus from District 9, or I'm just going to call him Casper Van Dien, the actor, because it's his Casper Van Dale, it's close enough. Recon Soldier Vicus is a loner and the unflappable, calm presence on the task force. An introvert, Vicus does not make acquaintances easily, but his determination to fight for a better world is rock solid. OVP Recon Drone. Spots nearby moving targets and can disorient enemies by using EMP blasts. Can also be used to designate target for lock-on weapons. Movement sensor alerts the player to approaching enemies both while boots on the ground and when piloting the recon drone. And then there's 6 other spaces here for the rest of the specialists that are being announced. And then here's some artwork for the 2 major modes, Conquest and Breakthrough. It says, Conquest, Battlefield's massive iconic sandbox mode returns, this time supporting 128 players on Series X and S, PS5, and PC. The maps have been specifically designed for this vast scale, with action divided into clusters of various kinds. Also, the action now centers around sectors consisting of several flags instead of individual control points, which is interesting. Breakthrough. The return of Breakthrough sees 2 teams, attackers and defenders, battle over large-scale sectors as the attackers push towards the final objective. Each sector is designed to house a larger number of players, enabling more strategic choice and more flanking. I guess that's the new Rush if you think about it. It's kind of Rush on a much bigger scale. It's just and it's also Rush without the bomb planting. Maybe that mode is just too small for these maps. I don't know. So probably RIP Rush, but Breakthrough can almost be better at times. Like Breakthrough in Battlefield 1 was amazing. Enabling more strategic choice and player flanking, or more flanking opportunities. Approach the capture areas from multiple locations. Wait, did I skip some stuff? No, I didn't. Approach the capture areas from multiple locations and take advantage of more types of tactical possibilities. So that's really about it for details regarding Battlefield 2042. What do you guys think? I've seen some disappointment about the near future setting, but all that I have said before is that I think people need to chill out. It's not like they're... I would be mad and concerned if they were running around with laser guns and jetpacks, which they are not. They did not go that far. So I think if you're a fan of BF3 and 4, especially, this looks like finally like a return to form for that. People can... Past 3 years, people have been like, well, back to BF4 when 1 and 5 came out because they didn't like the era of each one. I hope it's a huge bounce back from 5 because that game was a huge disappointment. I was starting to enjoy it with the Pacific update, and I was pretty hyped that they were gonna finally get into like the European theater, but then they pulled the plug because they had to move all their people over to work on this game. That's just a matter of EA, I think, rushing some of their developers. So I hope there's probably a ton of people out there that have not played a Battlefield game since 4 that are finally returning with this game, and with I think just crossplay between all platforms. With that, for the first time in Battlefield, it's going to be, I think, bigger than ever. The player base is going to be massive with that. And I hope there's new rentable servers again, like for community games. Something that 5 couldn't even scrape together. So are you on board with the setting or not? Would you have preferred a more like modern, like 2021 setting, basically? Or is this just right? I think it looks great. That trailer had me so hyped earlier today. I may not sound like it now, but it's because I am pretty tired. What a way to kick off E3. This is the first big reveal, I think, of E3. And it's cool to see them go first and not Call of Duty for once. So what did you guys think of the reveal? Did you love it as much as I did? Are you as hyped as I am for when this comes out? Let me know in the comments. Tell me what your ranking is for the Battlefield series. What's your favorite? What's your least favorite? My favorite is probably a tie between... Well, no, it's probably Bad Company 2. I just have the best memories from that. It's tied between that and 3. But 4 is also up there. But I think least favorite is probably 5. And I haven't played 2. No, least favorite's definitely Hardline. But anyway, let me know in the comments. And I will be here to cover more of E3 in this coming week. Thank you all for watching.